afternoon, and thank you for joining us. My name is Ashley West with FTMIG Events, and today we are hosting CEO of AIML Innovations, Paul Duffy. Paul has a detailed presentation to go through where he's going to recap Q2, overview Q3, and he looks forward to answering questions at the end. So please feel free to submit your questions in the top right section of the webinar platform. Hi, Paul. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. I know that you're extremely busy these days, so thank you for taking the time to update us.
Wonderful. Yeah, and, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I'll let you finish before I interrupt.
No, that was fine. I was finished.
Oh, all right, good. Well, it's wonderful to see you again. Thanks again to the Follow Your Money team. You're doing a great job. First and foremost, before I launch into the presentation, as always, I want to thank our shareholders, both current and future. Your support has been exceptional. I'm calling today from our offices in Toronto. I'm going to update the team about some West Coast activities in Vancouver through this call. As I've always said, I love reaching out to shareholders and helping them work with us as a team because we're all one part of AIML. And, I must say over the last 90 days, I've had considerable input from shareholders. The result of those introductions have been amazing. They've added hard value to our pipeline. And I hope as we go through Q3, we can announce some of those deals. So please don't stop with that. And what I'm about to show you and where we're going with the Neural Cloud and the ECG, I would again make the offer to open that up and think about where you could see this being of value in your quote near network. And then finally, I'd like to thank all of the team members within AIML. It's a family. It takes a lot of hard work. We have a number of different operating companies. We've got a great employee base. We've got an exceptional supplier and contractor base. So I want to thank everybody who is within our orbit for your time, your dedication, and obviously your perseverance as we're building and scaling the business. And I would have to say, quite frankly, it's getting a lot of fun. So with that, Ashley, if you'll give me a moment, I'll put my glasses on. I'll fire up this wonderful little computer, share my screen. Hopefully we don't, let's just share that. Hopefully that'll work. You can see that okay? I lose you once I get into this, so I may ask you periodically, hey, am I still there?
That's perfect.
Okay, here we go. So, I'm going to, today do two things. Normally I do a recap at the end of the quarter and, a week or two later announce here's where we're going to go. But things are moving so fast, I just collapse them into one meeting. But pretty much everything we were hoping to have unfold through Q2 has unfolded as planned. I'm very excited about that. I'm going to share that with you through the day. And then I'm going to show and introduce you to where I see July, August, and September headed and the interim milestones that we'll be targeting for that. So without any further ado, let's just jump into it. I think for historical purposes, I will bore you with the first 270 days. I'll take no more than 2 or 3 minutes to scan through that. But for anybody that would review back into what we're doing, I'll just call it the spirit of transparency. I want you to be able to see kind of the rolling summary of what we've been doing since I joined last September. So that's really the first 270 days. We'll spend the balance of this session over the next 90 days. That's July, August, and September, calendar year Q3, talking specifically about our product, the market, and how the product and market fit together. And then as always, I look forward to taking your questions. I always find that a lot of fun, to be frank. So what I'm going to do is just take our plane back up to 50,000 feet. You've seen this particular slide in virtually every presentation that I do, but it's key to the overall AIML vision. And what I mean by that is, and let's hope this video here works, is for us, it's all about understanding how to capture biometric signals from devices and smart sensors that are in the market. As you know, we've got our watch. I'm going to talk about other devices like patches as we go through the day. But it's key that we think of the capture, analyze, and action as the AIML biometric journey, because everything we do fits into that framework. So if you think about it, what we want to do is we want to capture a signal, bring it up onto your phone, have the ability to look at it, but more importantly, we want to be able to analyze that signal inside of our neural nets. This is the key to it all. Why? Because the body is constantly online. I believe that there's so much data that we can capture from smart sensors, but that data needs to be fed and analyzed through a neural net so that itself can become actionable information. And that's basically the journey that we're on. If we think about coming out of the neural net and into any form of remote patient monitoring, a web portal, an app, if we're feeding information back to, I'll call it a cooperative app or portal or platform that we're working with, we need to make sure that our neural nets can take that data, rationalize it, and then provide it back in actionable information, because that's when you can get the insights and you can get the diagnostics that we're looking for. And of course, with that information, it flows itself through to the healthcare professionals that are on your team. In fact, this could even go back to you as an individual who's looking to get more personalized and frankly, even quantified about your own biometrics. So it's very key that we do that, because that fills the feedback loop to get that information, that actionable information, back to you front and center. So I bring this up only because it is central to our journey. It's at the very top level when I consider opportunities, be them sales, be them acquisitions. I'm always thinking about how it fits into this framework. So I'm going to begin with that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. It's for historical purposes, but you can see the first 100-day milestones when I joined, September 11th, 2023. We had a good, what I would call back end to 23, hit our milestones, managed to achieve some fairly decent success. When I came in on January, I mentioned that would be the quarter of building. And frankly, it really was. We established some pretty amazing, outlines and milestones there. Most importantly, we got this watch sorted out. We got the neural net for the non-invasive blood pressure measurement figured out. The team did a great job. That is an excellent product for us and one that we will continue to prosecute and bring into market. So I'm quite pleased with all of that. That quarter also gave us the opportunity to have a look at what else we could do to scale the business around the capture, analyze, and action. And so we got very busy with that. As we're doing that here, just for historical, you can see the press releases and the announcements that we made in Q1. And that really brought us into where we are today on the recap for Q2. At that point in time, the beginning of Q2, it was clear to me that in addition to having Health Gauge, a watch, and a non-invasive neural net, that one of the sweet spots in the market that we could truly capitalize on was this need for a neural net platform. In fact, what it could do is it could truly open up an entire growth platform for AIML. Why? Because there's an enormous amount of sensor data becoming available in the market. And as that data grows, it's going to intersect with the healthcare market. And naturally, the two of them are going to have some level of overlap that we want to be in the middle of. And so to get after that market, I began working with Naiad Labs. We brought in Esmet as an interim chief product officer and began to work with he and his team to really rationalize how we would muscle up the blood pressure neural net and bring it onto this platform. And that worked incredibly well. I think I shared with a lot of folks the success we'd had in taking the signal processing algorithm they had, applying it with the current work that we had within the blood pressure neural net, and pull that together. So much so that it's at the stage now where it is ready for submission into the FDA. So I'm very pleased with how that unfolded. As we went through the quarter, I also wanted to make sure that the platform was real and we could launch it within 30 days. And so I'm happy to report that we've been able to do that and we are in market. I'm going to share some of that with you as we go through the presentation today. It also allows us to expand our product portfolio. So not only can we do the what I would call the blood pressure neural net, the non-invasive blood pressure neural net, but we've got an entire bet happening with long ECG. I'm going to go through that in detail today, but that has proven to be quite significant as a growth opportunity. And then, of course, within all of this, what I wanted to do was bring in a complete professional services division, essentially start building neural nets and capabilities, but primarily neural nets that allow other companies, medical device companies, wearable device companies, platform companies, remote patient monitoring companies to get access to this neural net, basically to take advantage of the fact that they're capturing information, we're able to analyze, convert it to actionable data, and send that off to them from a remote patient monitoring point of view. And so to do that, we also inserted, and I think you'll see the announcements from the quarter, MicroPay with our friends at TotaQ Micro. They've got a phenomenal technology, allows us to go into, frankly, pennies or portions of pennies and actually be able to conduct transactions at that level. So I'm going to share with you some of the activities that we're doing there, which I think you'll find quite interesting. But this entire services division was something that I wanted to get started and get off the ground. And so that's moving ahead quite well. The other items like building value with the FDA, the grants, and the science advisory are all in flight. Each of those have taken a turn and gone quite well. So the recap on Q2 is we hit the ground running and we were very successful. In fact, I call it our accretive quarter. Why? Because we acquired the assets from our friends at Naiad Labs. We've taken those assets. We've created a company called the Neural Cloud Solutions Incorporated. We've launched a website and a platform called the neuralcloud.com. We've basically launched the long ECG labeling platform, and that's worked incredibly well. And we're actively in market selling that today as a neural net as a service offer. So congratulations to the team for hitting that. As I look into the next 90 days, so July, August, and September, I want to do more of the same because it's working. I'm going to continue to build pipeline specifically around the neural cloud. I'm going to take you through it today and you'll kind of get a sense of why I'm interested in that, but it is working and I think it's going to be hugely interesting for folks to look at. We are still going to work around this concept of a sales company. We'll focus the neural cloud, health gauge, and even tech to heal into the concept of this, but we're going to continue to build that quarter over quarter. And in fact, so much so that earlier, it was actually last week, I just signed a lease for the opening of an office in the Davies Center that is resident inside Providence Health Network in the city of Vancouver. This puts us at ground zero for anything and everything related to cardiac capability. I'll share some updates as we go through the quarter, but that's a significant move for AIML. It puts us right into the middle of the healthcare networks within the province of British Columbia. And as we are here in Toronto, we're right in the middle of all the action around healthcare in the University Health Network. So it positions us both geographically as well as with our products in the right places. I'm going to continue to get somewhat maniacal around the vision and growth of our platform, product, and services story. When I come to show you the extent of opportunity that we have with this labeling and then the insight and diagnostics around long ECG, I think you'll share your enthusiasm with me as well. Now, I don't want us to lose sight of our blood pressure estimate. That's still available. We're still out in market with that. But I think when you start to see the amount of opportunity that we can move quickly in with long ECG, you'll get a sense of why I'm excited. And of course, with all of that, we'll fold in our MicroPay, our TAP, our API to API transactions. We're open to all forms of neural net licensing. And we're also going to open up a complete data collection program. One of the things we're able to do with this platform is actually allow individuals to label certain components of the training data that we require for our neural nets. And this is exciting because we can use what I call reverse tap. So you would tap to pay, could be pennies at a time, could be a few dollars at a time, but we can use that same technology to go out into, for instance, first responders who have some extra time between the seams, who can go in and take an ECG trace, and we can pay them to literally go in because they're knowledgeable and label these traces for us to further advance and develop the training of our neural nets. And I believe this is going to prove to be a fairly significant opportunity for us as we're building and muscling up our neural nets. We're going to continue to add shareholder value by driving the FDA process. We've not lost sight of that. It's something I think as we go through Q3, we'll continue to move. We've done a great job to date bringing in some cash for research, so scientific research and development shred credits. We're going to continue to do that. I'm expecting some additional cash from August and then again in November. So kudos to Randy and the team at HealthGauge for that. And I'm going to be making further announcements through Q3 as we muscle up our science and product advisory council. I think you'll be quite excited when I can announce who's going to join. It's pretty interesting. So let me talk a little bit about this whole idea of the neuralcloud.com. I encourage anybody to just go there. It's very simple, it's very easy, and that's what I like about it. But I view it as our platform of growth. This idea of a neural net as a service is going to become a thing. Now, for us at AIML, it's important for a variety of reasons. The 6 of them are here on the screen. But primarily, I want us to become device independent. What I loved about HealthGauge when I met them was they had a watch and a neural net that used an ECG and a PPG signal. It basically took that information and it put it through a neural net that created, for lack of a better term, a medically accurate packet of information about your blood pressure. And so that was awesome. And it still is awesome. But the truth of it is the neural net is frankly a lot more valuable than this watch, this device. And as we all know, and I will show you momentarily, the smart sensor market is expanding and almost at one of the fastest growth trajectories, a CAGR, year over year than any industry on the planet. So we want to be device independent with our platform. So I believe we're there now with the Neural Cloud. When I was referring earlier about first responders being able to train and actually label certain signals, that's where we can get into this whole idea of model optimization. Why? Because the more data we can put through our neural nets, the more valuable our business will become. Because ultimately, we want a data strategy. We want to have a rich, enduring business that is utilizing the data and we're monetizing it. And that's really at the core of what a neural net platform will do for us. At the same time, as I mentioned, we'll have our services business. We'll build a discipline into the process for FDA. There are a lot of organizations that are going to come up with devices, they're going to come up with neural nets, and they're going to need FDA certification. And since we're going through that, there's a very strong likelihood we will be able to do that, not just for ourselves, but for other parties that are using our core technologies and platforms to the, what I would say, to the end of their outcome. In other words, we're helping them move forward. And I say that because point number 5 here is kind of critical. This is the quote X factor for this opportunity. It's the proprietary signal processing algorithms that the team at the Neural Cloud have developed and are continuing to expand. They're getting great interest and great excitement from an awful lot of organizations that want to take advantage of that signal processing capability to exploit it for obviously their own purposes. And so what this really does is it sets us up quite nicely for point 6, which is the creation and adaptation of net new neural nets that again will run on our platform. So I believe it's a very virtuous cycle for us if we stay focused around these 6 particular points and we just drive the neuralcloud.com as our growth strategy for our platform. So to give you a sense of why that excites me, I've shared this slide in prior presentations, but I come back to it often because it really helps ground where this portion of the market lives. And for those watching, just give this a read. The summary is simple. Back in 2022, the market itself for smart sensors, these are the integrated circuits, these are the little bits of chips, if you would, that go on the back of watches, rings, wearables, they go on the back of patches. Basically, these particular smart sensors are growing with a CAGR, a compounded annual return of about 20% per year. This growth rate is extraordinary. And this is going on and projected to go on for the next decade. And what we want to do is we want to be right in the middle of that. Why? Because what's driving this growth, a big portion of it, is the increased adoption of smart wearables. Today, we think of them as sensors and devices that we wear, but frankly, in the next few years, they're going to be in clothing. They're going to be in eyewear. They're going to be in your socks, your shoes, your belts. They're going to basically be everywhere, and they're going to form a biometric mesh, a measurement mesh around your whole body that is taking that information and it needs a place to go. Well, where does it go? In our opinion, it's going to go to the neural cloud, and it's going to be run through a series of neural networks that are going to return back to that individual actionable information. And that's where we want to place the neural cloud, and why I believe neural nets as a service are going to grow and proliferate. And to really just point that in a very specific area, let's think of the intersection of that smart sensor market growing married with healthcare, and in particular, where ECGs in healthcare sit today. And this is why I'm very excited about our labeling tool. In the United States right now, there's about 100 million medically performed ECGs happening every year. Their frequency of use is quite high, just given the number and the population, but it's primarily around chronic cardiac patients and, frankly, folks that are doing routine checkups and screenings. Individuals with chronic patients, as individuals, are typically getting multiple ECGs done. And then for others, it might just be a one-off, maybe once or twice a year kind of thing. There's about 30 to maybe 40 million patients that are actively in this process, but these are just the medical ECGs. There's the whole world of the emerging market opportunity of non-medical ECGs. So these are typically related for things like research, sports science, fitness, even things like personal health monitoring. You've probably heard of biohackers and folks that are into quantified self, longevity, etc. Not a market to ignore. It's growing, and it's growing quickly. But in the end, what you're getting, and you can see it over here on the right, is this little trace signal that basically takes your heartbeat. And that's an interesting issue for a neural net. And so that is what we launched and started the neuralcloud.com around. Why? Because when you get into studying a heartbeat, there are an awful lot of very specific signals and moments in time that need to be measured. And the best way to measure those is to label them beat by beat. But if you can imagine trying to label a 30 seconds worth of heartbeats versus an hour or versus 24 to 48 hours, it becomes an impossible task. There's an entire industry built up around reading and studying ECGs. And so what we did is we took our signal processing algorithm and we began to label these types of ECGs, and we let the neural net use the machine learning to do what it does best and create a signal processing algorithm that allows us to input a trace and actually export a series of beat by beat labels per heartbeat. It's very exciting. And so again, if I take the plane back up to our original concept of capture, analyze, and action, this fits wonderfully within that framework. We are able to capture through ECG devices, and these could be anything from watches to Holter monitors to virtually anything, patches, you name it. We take in that file, we run it through our analyze platform, essentially the neural cloud, and we output today an actual row by row summary of about 12 different individual measurements of that particular ECG trace. And we do this in moments. It's quite extraordinary. So it's very simple. That's what I love about it. We can take one of these traces that you can see here, an ECG raw file. We can literally upload it to the neural cloud. You can press a button, and in minutes, you can get 200,000 or more rows actually measured and labeled. This is extraordinary if you're trying to do insight, post-processing, or diagnostics for ECG. And so that is something that I'm just going to show you where we sit today. I'll run this video. Hopefully it goes fine. You just log in. This is Esmet's account. You pick your job. You upload your file. Very simple. It goes in. You hit submit. The neural net does its business. You get your waveform analysis. It downloads your CSV file. You bring it into your spreadsheet. And before you know it, you're actually looking at, in this particular case, I think it's 6,000 actual heartbeats labeled. And of course, with that data, you can have all forms of insights, post-processing, and diagnostics performed to it. And this is what we launched a few weeks ago. We are rapidly advancing this process. I'm going to see if I can get to the next slide here. Here we go. We are rapidly advancing this process to include the dashboards natively in the platform. But for the early market, the folks that need the labeling, that's absolutely the product market fit for today. Why? If you have a look at this screen, I think you'll get an appreciation for the job that we're tackling. If you do a 30-second ECG, typical trace, might get 40, 60 beats. To actually go in and hand label that could take up to an hour. If you were to actually take an hour's worth of ECGs and actually begin to label it, certainly to a point where you need it, you could be up to a few weeks, several days, frankly, of labeling. And I think anybody that's gone in and had a long-term ECG done, certainly here in Canada, in the US, it might be a little bit faster, but in theory, you could be waiting up to a week, possibly 2, sometimes 3 weeks before you get results from an extensive ECG. Now, if you're looking to get an ECG, I would think you would prefer to get a 24 to 48 hour ECG. Why? Because you're looking at a significantly larger pool of information about your heart. The problem with it is, as you can see here, it's untenable. You're into, I'll call it many months, perhaps years, just to get the labeling done. I mean, it's a non-starter to begin with. So that's why it's not done at the level we're proposing today. But when you have a platform like ours, and you can upload a 48-hour ECG trace from something like a Holter monitor, you can literally go in and get all 170 to 200,000 heartbeats labeled. And then once they're labeled from a post-processing point of view, you're able to go in and begin the insights, begin the diagnostics, begin to troubleshoot what's happening. And I believe as we continue along this journey, we are going to find more and more use of this particular neural net around cardiovascular. And that's what I'm very excited about. More to the point, in addition to having this as a completely disruptive technology in the world of cardiology, what we're also able to do is apply this signal processing neural net, our algorithms, to other potential biometric measurements. So we took this exact signal technology, we picked up the blood pressure neural net that we had, we ran it through, it cleaned it up, and it actually created a more accurate neural net for us. Even areas where we're looking at biological and chronological age through a picture off your phone, with the right signal algorithm being trained on that information, the neural net itself can come back and begin to use and find biomarkers that can help alert you to issues or prevention. So it's significant in its use and its application. One such early market, as I mentioned, is labeling ECGs. Of course, it works really well with blood pressure, but we're not stopping. We're going to put this signal processing network into as many diagnostic opportunities as we can find. And that's what I'm pursuing through Q3 and into Q4. So stay tuned for more announcements on that. But taking it back to the ECG, where we are today, on June 3rd, we launched. We've brought a number of parties in under pilot. They're currently uploading their ECGs, getting their spreadsheets, getting their labels, and moving forward. Through the month of July, we will be inserting into that dashboard a complete process where you upload your ECG, you process the file, but now because we can do a beat-by-beat diagnostics, we'll begin to do some insights and some diagnostic dashboards, basically, to help provide more insight into what's happening within this wall of data. And then likely by mid-August, well, let's be nice and say perhaps the end of August, what we're going to be able to do is bring in well over 30 different types of diagnostic conditions around cardiovascular with this platform. So we're going to build a deep and enduring product that fits nicely into both medical ECG and non-medical ECG. And we're going to basically sell that everywhere. So I'm quite excited about all that. There's no lack of opportunity. Everybody knows how big the market is. There's multiple types of conditions that we can work on and work with. So that's quite exciting. But what I'm most interested in is how do we monetize? So you've seen these types of slides from me before. I mean, I typically look at a TAM, a total addressable market. In this case, I'm focusing in on ECGs, and I'm in the United States. There's over 100 million ECGs performed annually in the United States. When you get into that market and you start looking at trying to build traction, you're looking at your buyer persona, your user persona, your evaluators, how you go after that market. If you can believe it, there's well over 1.3 million people active within the world of cardiovascular, basically as healthcare professionals in the US. I mean, that's a substantial and robust market to take a look at. With the platform that we've got today, we can go well over 50 plus detectable, distinct heart issues. And so this is big because that, when you look at the 1.3 million people that are out there and the 50 plus conditions, when you're trying to align up the buyer persona with a value prop and getting them, frankly, to theneurocloud.com so they can go on and try the system, you want to make sure you're aligning quite nicely to that. And so we're there. And the final thing I look for is, how frothy is the market? Is there a lot of money flowing through that can handle any potential uplift that we can offer? And so here, obviously, just within the US alone, you've got well over 300 billion literally put into healthcare for cardiovascular disease. So it's quite substantial. So if I just pull it back to reality and I look at it and I think, all right, I've got a very large market. It's growing. I think, ultimately what we would want to do as a business is begin to socialize our pricing around a labeling solution that's roughly about $99 US. I think that's that number may change as we're, basically out in market, but let's use that as to hang our hat on. I know absolutely once we do the insights in the diagnostic dashboards, it's going to ratchet up significantly in value. So I'm basically going to put two ends of the spectrum at about $100 to 300 US, and I'm going to look at capturing about 0.5% of that 100 million medical ECG market. So if I was to give myself 24 months, maybe 36, I'd like to see us sitting at around 500,000 of these labeled and diagnostic ECGs running through the NeuroCloud. And of course, if we did that, the back of the napkin math gets us between 50 and 150 million in revenues, or addressable revenue, we'll call it. So that's what I'm focusing on as we commercialize the NeuroCloud for long ECG, because I believe this is a perfect use case of AI providing not just economic value, but significant value from a social and healthcare point of view to the patients. The time frame drops dramatically in being able to get your ECG properly labeled with the post-production and diagnostics done. I mean, we're taking what is potentially days to weeks of turnaround time into, less than an hour. In fact, it may get to the point where once we're going through, I'll just call them processes like FDA and others, that this can be something that can be done just pretty much on the spot. But for those that are in non-medical ECG, when we look at watches, wearables, and other smart sensors that are gathering our information, I think we're going to see this considerably scale at that level. So I'm very excited about it. And so with that, basically, I just want to keep, focused on how do we drive shareholder value. So I believe with our blood pressure neural net and our health gauge approach, I believe at the neurocloud.com and what we're doing there specifically with labeling and long ECG, we'll begin to continue to open up and grow our revenue base. I also like the fact that with a platform like the neurocloud.com, ECGs have a great long tail. You take one today, you might take one in a month, you might take one in 6 months, but you will always want access to your prior data. And so I feel that with all the technologies that we're building, this gives us the strongest foot forward to scale and grow value for our shareholders. We'll continue to focus on getting FDA and other regulatory certifications in place because obviously in many respects they're needed. In fact, in a lot of instances if you don't. But what I do want to remind our shareholders is this long ECG neural net today provides the labeling to the healthcare professional. It's to be an aid to them so that they can make the insight, post-processing, and diagnostic decisions themselves. We're not looking to do that for them. We're looking to provide them with actionable information that they can do with. So from that perspective, we can be a market today, which is what I'm excited about. Anybody who wants to follow it, feel free, but this is the product roadmap that we will use for the balance of the quarter. Esmet and his team are actively working on it. Mike Feist is, I think, almost at 10 hours a day, 7 days a week with his team. They're doing an amazing job. And as I mentioned at the top of the call, for all our shareholders, if you feel there is value in the long ECG, the labeling, and the diagnostics from the Neural Cloud, don't hesitate to reach out, make introductions, pass the website along. We've designed it specifically so that they literally can try it. It's self-serve. You can click on it. You can upload your ECG file. Of course, we can help you with any of that, but we've built this thing for volume and for scale, and it's in market now. So, feel free to, frankly, just make introductions if you can. But I encourage you, go and have a look at it and just watch us as we grow over the next 90 days. We're going to continue to expand the products. I love the Follow Your Heart brand. I have not stepped away from that. I've just put a stronger focus, if you would, this quarter into the Neural Cloud. But I do believe we will continue to grow the non-invasive blood pressure, product and product line, aka Follow Your Heart. And then finally, we'll continue to develop the services as we continue to engage with clients. So Ashley, I think with that, I'm ready to answer some questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Very detailed and organized as always, and a perfect roadmap. Okay, from Kevin Finley. I live in Edmonton and would like to know where I can buy the Phoenix Health Gauge. I checked the new websites and it doesn't send me a link to them. I've tried phoning the numbers and I'm not receiving a response.
Yeah, so I think we're in the midst right now. I mean, you would obviously speak to Randy Duguay. You could just email him directly. They have watches. They're happy to send them over. So that's what I would propose. Just go to the Health Gauge website and send it. Or you could just email me and I'm happy to make an intro to Randy.
Perfect. Hi, Paul. Great work. Can you tell us a way of contacting investor relations that is different from the info@email, as I don't seem to be receiving a response?
Okay. Well, obviously Blake and Morgan, I think what we can do, Ashley, is you can, provide their email addresses to that guy, and I'm sure they'd be happy to pick up and follow it.
Perfect. Sounds good. I'll send a private email.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Paul. Regarding point 5 earlier, you mentioned groups that are interested in, are they in the same industry or are they showing interest from different industries?
Oh, okay. Which point 5 are we referring to?
In your slideshow, you had
point 5 on the Neural Cloud. Yeah. So that's a great question. So some are in healthcare, health tech, obviously, because the signal processing for biometrics. But oddly enough, the signal processing it works quite well in other areas where there's signals. So in healthcare, for instance, you've got the ECG trace that you're labeling. That signal processing algorithm, what it really excels at is removing noise from the signal and getting to the root of what the biomarker is telling you in that signal. That's what works very well with a trace. Similarly, if you're an MRI, radiology, CAT scan, you can take specific types of scans, let's just say spotty liver, and you can go in and you can identify and label them. And then you run it through the signal processing algorithm, and it will begin to train and learn and develop a neural net that will work against that image processing. At the same time, you can take photos of people, even videos, and you can label certain indications. And those can begin to train a neural net as well. So that's all in the world of health tech, and that's all the signal processing. When you look at things like studying perhaps stock market trends, when you start looking at other queuing systems or other signal systems, the processing algorithm as well can work in those industries. For a variety of reasons, which are primarily focus, I've not pursued any of those. We can do them, be happy to entertain potentially licensing into those segments to utilize that technology, but I would have to be frank and say at this point in time, our plate's pretty full, just dealing with, frankly, ECG today. So I'd love to do it, but I don't see it, bubbling up on the priority list. Certainly not for this quarter. Yeah.
Makes sense. And can you shed some light on your launch and expansion program into the US? How soon are you looking to incorporate into the US and build your sales from there?
So that has all begun. So for those that have kind of followed me in prior companies, I do what's called blitz scaling. I didn't make this up. I mean, it's actually kind of how groups like LinkedIn and others kind of came to be. But so we are actively now beginning to move into the US for the labeling of the ECG on the Neural Cloud. So we have partners that act in a go-to-market outbound campaign for us. We have brought on board search engine marketing and SEO resources to begin to geofence and target so that we can essentially feather together our outbound activities with inbound activities. Esmond and his team, I meet with, multiple times a day as we're launching this to go through the proper capture of the lead, the movement through the funnel, and then as we're working it, closing the opportunities. What's key here is that we want to scale quickly, and to do that, it needs to be a fairly simple process. So if we phone a cardio clinic, a clinical manager, and we let them know that we can help their throughput 10x, and we just tell them, try it. It's free. Go to literally theneuralcloud.com. You can sign up there, upload an ECG file, and see for yourself. Because it costs us pennies to process a labeled ECG file and return it back. So by offering up to an hour's worth of labeled ECG so that they can actually experience the power of this, that's how we believe we'll start to see these prospects, these leads convert to opportunities and then to paying accounts.
That's great. You're going to show them the proof of concept right there.
Right. Well, that's the beauty of it. Like I've specifically named the website, theneuralcloud.com. Anybody who's actually gone out and tried to build early markets, okay, where you got virtually no brand, you got a really killer product, you've identified your product, your market, your fit. You're getting, price is a bit of a random walk around value. We'll continue to refine that. But the truth of the matter is you need the early opportunity to be fairly frictionless. So when you do these outbounds, you're phoning people and you're leaving them voicemails. I mean, you might get people on the phone, but truthfully, you want to leave them a very pithy, very direct very direct voicemail with a link to a website that right on the hero page, as soon as they click it, all they do is try. It's free, boom. And if they're interested, that's what they will do. It works no different in an inbound campaign. We will put pay-per-click, we'll go into the right social channels, and we will drive people with the same value proposition, again, targeted individuals with the buyer persona to the website. And then we get maniacal about managing the traffic that comes to the top of the funnel and the conversion rates to that free trial. So that's basically what we're doing right now. We just launched that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great update, Paul. Thank you. Who would you consider to be AIML's largest competitor?
Well, it's interesting. Without a doubt, there's this co-opetition kind of model happening out there. I mean, it is an ecosystem. There are other device businesses, and that's really where I want to put our neural net, within the context of that. So I don't necessarily know if I'd call the device groups competition. I'd probably prefer them more as customers. But I do think positioned properly, the neuralcloud.com becomes a huge enabler for groups like Apple, Google, Samsung, and other big data or big tech companies that are looking for biometrics or biometric information, how to better serve their customer or their patient, even Amazon and all the stuff that's going on there. So I don't view these guys as hard competitors, but you could say that there is, a little bit of similarity there. They're obviously monster in size compared to where we are. But I think from AIML's point of view, at the moment, there are no entities that I'm aware of that label ECGs to the level that we do. Nobody has a signal processing algorithm to the extent that we do. There may be intermittent little bubbles here and there, but I don't think anybody's got it together at the platform level that we do. So I'm comfortable with that. I don't know how long that lead will last. I mean, like everything, we run as fast as we can, get into market and get to scale. But, from a competition point of view, people will say they do ECG, but when you get into the nuance of it, they're not labeling it beat to beat, 12 different beats the way we do, and giving you the insights and the diagnostics that we do. So I feel at the moment, a bit of a head start, but like everything, the competition in the market will show up. So we just got to keep running.
Good. Okay. Thanks, Paul. Can you share potential partnership opportunities? Any big names we can get excited about?
Well, I'm going to say, just keep keep an eye on our news releases. Probably the single biggest tell is the fact that we just put an office into the Providence Health Network, Davies building, and what's going on in there. You can Google it. But, I feel we're going to have several. And I'm kind of here's my feeling on all of that. Partnerships are super important because, they help us grow and scale. What I'm very interested in this quarter and next quarter is getting to revenue, getting actual paying customers using the platform, because that will allow me to study and better understand what we need to do to scale. Because I need that input. I need people to say, yes, I love it. And I need people to tell me, no, I don't like it because it doesn't do this. That to me is the most important. As we continue to tighten that product market fit, those partnerships will naturally unfold around us. And so I feel where we are positioned today in Toronto and where we are newly positioned in Vancouver, we're domiciled at two great ecosystems and centers for partnerships. But my primary focus is to get us to revenue.
Great. Do you think the pre-launch marketing among general public would be a good idea if this product has such good potential in the general public? If yes, then what is the quarter you are targeting for that?
I think the quote general public, let's just call it the non-medical ECGs for the NeuroCloud, is likely a Q1 2025 where you'll have some scale. I believe over the next 6 months, we will absolutely cut deals with device organizations that will access our NeuroCloud for a variety of reasons, but let's just call it ECG and blood pressure at the moment. But those will be both clinical as well as non-clinical, so the non-medical. I don't believe you'll start to see rapid scale at the consumer level until Q1 next year as things begin to proliferate. I don't really have a magic ball to tell you that, but I just know experience. It takes several months for this to get into the zeitgeist. You need some proof points, you need some influencers, you need a bunch of dominoes to fall in the right direction. And then magically, there's a bit of a hoarding that happens and a cohort of users come in to the NeuroCloud for non-medical or for personal purposes. And again, as I'm getting us to revenue, we're studying that. What does the individual pay versus the diagnostic or the medical? What do they pay? What are the price points? What are the trade-offs in the product? What are the individuals looking for versus the medical version of it? These are all flavors of the same issue. And as we begin to align the product market fit, that will all wash out as we go forward.
Good. Okay, Paul, there seems to be buyers coming into the market now, and you have an open PP at 5 cents. Is there still room to come in?
That would be a question for Blake. I'm probably going to say no, but they're doing a great job at it.
That is a Blake question. And while we mentioned that's a Blake question, so Blake's email is blake.fallis, Fallis, at AIML-innovations.com for anyone that's having an issue getting a hold through the info@ email. I'll just throw that out there now.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm just going to scroll down here. Thanks, Paul. Can you share potential partnership opportunities? I already asked that one, so we will go right by that. With our partners in Europe, start marketing the neural net.
Yeah, actually, Tech to Heal for sure. I think that I'm very interested in getting that over there. What's more interesting is outside of Tech to Heal, there's been a lot of interest in Europe around accessing the ECG. And the reason I say that is many of what I would call the Western European countries have a similar, put it politely, healthcare system that we have here in Canada. The mechanisms, the socialism aspect of it, the public funding, et cetera, are all very similar. They rhyme, they're close. Whereas in the US, you're in the motives in the US are very different as you're moving through to commercialization. And both have their flavors and benefits and pullbacks. But it is different. So because it does sort of rhyme very closely with Canada, we do get some knocks on the door. I suspect we'll see more and more of that within the European framework, Western European countries specifically over the next 6 months.
Okay. Hi, Paul. After months of little movement on the stock price, it seems to have considerable action lately. Can you offer any insight on why that might be?
The neurocloud.com. The potential of that market. the fact that it holds the potential to be a highly disruptive technology to a market segment that holds enormous promise in helping to benefit humanity. And I mean that in a straight up way. I'm happy that the stock's reacting. I'm also happy that we're getting traction in the space. But I also want folks to recognize that anybody that's going through any kind of cardiac condition, the levels of frustration that happen on the home front at the personal level, waiting for diagnostics, waiting for insights, can be, frankly, quite taxing. And, if this can play a small part in reducing that, we've basically got the double whammy. We've got a great monetized commercialization technology that is benefiting humanity. And in the end, that's technically what AIML is all about, right? That's what we want to use AI to achieve. And so I feel there's people that are getting a glimpse of that. They're hearing the story from me. They're seeing it in action. And it's helping to move,
And the benefit to society in general is something that you've spoken about since the beginning. That has been a major talking point for you.
Yeah, it's a big part of the mission. I know I've got to update the AIML website. That's another thing we're doing this quarter. But the truth of it is, it really, the mission hasn't deviated from, when Tim and the crew set everything up. They're here to add some value, societal values, while obviously from an economic point of view, getting some value as well. But, there is great promise in AI, but there's also a lot of talk around it. The truth of it is everybody's AI this, AI that, right? It's very difficult to, get away from the noise. And so, I feel we have done that. I feel that we have created a platform, a product, and a solution into a very targeted market segment that we can begin to monetize and add true societal value. And that literally is as simple as labeling ECGs. I know it sounds crazy, but honestly, if anybody that studies, I'm not even a doc, I'm the last guy who's qualified to diagnose cardiovascular. But what I will tell you of those that do that, it almost always breaks down to mathematical formulas that are applied to data. The problem with it is it's very difficult to get the core and the root data to feed those actual calculations. That's the secret. And so if you're able to take a set of heartbeats and turn them into a completely and utterly boring Excel spreadsheet, and then I'm sure most people on this call have done this, you run a formula, you run a table, you run a macro, or you download from somebody, they give you a formula, you hit enter, and it produces a bunch of actionable information. That's what we're able to do. That's the breakthrough here, is the fact that we can take that trace, convert it to a wall of data, and you can run your calculations against it. That choke point, that part and stretch of the road is what our neural net is doing. And that's what the promise of AI is for healthcare.
It's nice to see it translating into the stock price as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of revenue are you expecting from the blood pressure diagnostic alone, and what growth rate are you targeting?
Well, as I've always said, I'm a little reluctant at this stage to cough up hard revenue numbers. As we begin to build traction, as we begin to book deals, I'll be able to get a better gauge on how quickly we can scale. Let me explain this because I don't want to walk away with a wishy-washy answer. What I want to understand over the next 90 days is what is the actual customer acquisition cost for that paying customer. And so I've got a spend in outbound, I've got a spend in inbound, I've got some overheads to collect those prospects to leads, convert them to opportunities. There's a time frame to get them to start. And I believe with the Neural Cloud, because of its low friction, it can almost be a one-call close to get them started. And then after they do 1, 2, or 10 ECGs, I get a better sense on what I would think of as the monthly and annual recurring revenue that we can expect from that particular type of buyer persona. And then from that, what the 3-year lifetime value of that particular customer would be. And I tie all that back into a model, a financial model that tells me if I spend the following amount of money around a customer acquisition program, all factors, all in being equal, I can expect the following amount of return on a monthly and annual basis, and I can gauge the lifetime value of the customer. I can then come forward to our shareholders and I can say, with the following amount of inputs to the system, we should expect the following amount of revenue coming out of the system over the following 90 days. And that is what I would prefer to do when I begin to put guidance in an early stage technology company, because that's exactly how we're going to do it. And so I'm not shying away from giving you revenue numbers. I just don't know how big could be. And I don't want to give you a BS, a float. I want it based on models that we as a family of AIML shareholders are measuring and monitoring as we go forward, because that's key to me.
Awesome. Okay, final question is the reference price of $100 to $300 per patient or per doctor?
Patient. The 1 to 300, that is per ECG.
Wow.
Yeah. It's, guys, this is, and I'm starting there. As we get into the nuance of this, there might be stuff down at pennies and there might be stuff at thousands. We just don't know yet. My instincts are telling me in the early market and the discussions we're having, it's going to swing. You're going to be doing, tap, pulse, pennies, all the way to, oh my God, I got a dashboard with 53 bars on it, alerts, and I can upload. And basically once a month, I can press a button and get a complete diagnostic. Oh, and that's what I'm going to now bring into my healthcare professional. It's just going to be a continuum like that.
That's perfect. And I think a lot of people like having their health information in their own hands. I think having that control is a huge benefit for people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, done properly, for instance, and here's what I mean by that. What we want to do is make sure in the context of these healthcare ecosystems that we're not doing something that I would say is non-positive, is causing trouble. And when I say causing trouble, is probably not aligned to what a clinical kind of diagnostic would be, because then it's useless. This is why these Apple Watches and other devices, most folks from those specialists will be like, it's kind of, we don't. It's I don't want to say gimmicky, but it's not. The detail and the information is not sufficient that we're going to bother with it. We're just going to continue to run you through our existing process, because the data the efficacy of it isn't as strong as it could be and should be for people to make decisions about it. Might be nice if you want to lose a few pounds, but if you've got cardio issues, you don't want to be relying on your Apple Watch, right? Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, we have had a couple comments come in, a couple compliments on your presentation, and just giving you a compliment for your great answer. And somebody has asked if we have a download link for the presentation, just so that everyone knows once the presentation is over, it gets transcribed and then the link will be sent out again. I believe, Paul, you might want to throw this one on YouTube and we'll circulate it across all of the handles. So I would say that would be up in the next day or so for anybody interested. Everybody that's registered will get the live this link again once it's been published, so you'll be able to view it as many times as you like and share it that way. Otherwise, if you have any closing remarks, Paul, we can do that now, as no other questions have come in.
All right, wonderful. Well, as I said at the beginning, two things on the presentation. I hopefully as we go into the next one, I'll continue to put the history from September when I joined of 2023. I'll just leave those quarterly snapshots. So for anybody who does want to go back historically, they're there. But, as a closing comment, just as I said at the top, thank you to our shareholders, both current and future. Your support has been amazing. I encourage all of you, think about this as you're on the team, and a meaningful contribution is any introductions, anywhere you think the technologies that we have today can benefit within your network or your near network. Don't hesitate to provide an opening intro or even, frankly, a direct contact. Several of you have done that over the last quarter. It's been completely meaningful and definitely helps. So, again, I encourage shareholders to do that. But I think, Ashley, with that, I just want everybody to know we will continue to make updates, be as transparent as possible as we go. Look forward to giving you all a more detailed update as we get into the back end of September. But between then and now, if we don't talk, have a wonderful summer. Enjoy it. Have a safe one with your family. And, thank you for, joining us on our journey here at AIML. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Paul. Take care.
All right. Thank you.